Trump thinks hundreds of thousands of Americans being dead means he's done a good job, then what the hell does he think his job is? Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Most of us, depending on our individual circumstances, there's all kinds of emotions that we're experiencing. People who are, who have lost all their income and yet still have bills, they're experiencing shock and loss. People who have lost a family member or friend or acquaintance to the coronavirus, or to, somebody had a heart attack and couldn't get into the hospital because it was overflowing with coronavirus, or didn't go to the hospital because they were afraid of adding coronavirus to the heart attack and then they died. I mean, these kinds of stories are becoming more and more common. And soon they're going to be stories that all of us either tell or know someone close to us who is telling. About death and loss and things like that. This is real stuff. But I think that probably the overwhelming emotion that most of us are feeling, or many of us are feeling right now, is grief. Grief at the loss of competent leadership in our country. If we're in red states, it's even worse. I'm fortunate to live in a blue state where, Kate Brown is our governor here in Oregon. She's doing a very good job of managing this thing. She's locked down the state. It's been that way for, I think, going on 2 weeks. I could be wrong, but for a while now. And, we're hearing good stuff in some of the blue states, but in the red states, it's like, Ron DeSantis still hasn't locked down northern Florida. And there are red states where the governors are just thumbing their noses at people. It's really pretty remarkable. So anyhow, in the midst of this, Donald Trump is out saying that if only 200,000 Americans die, he's done a pretty good job. Which causes me to want to add a third question to my list, or a fourth question. So far, my questions are, are you grieving, and if so, what? What are you doing to cope with that? And we're kind of crowdsourcing solutions. I've shared some of mine with you, from YouTube exercise videos to long baths to meditating. I would add to that trying to reach out more often to my wife and be closer to the people around me. There's a bunch of these things that are possibilities for us, things that we can be doing, and ways that we can be here for each other. And so we're all working on those things. So number two. Number three was how do you greet people when you're out walking? You have to stay 6 feet away from people. You want to say hi to them. I suppose hi is just fine, or good afternoon. I've been saying happy pandemic, but and generally getting positive responses to it. But it's kind of gallows humor, But let me add a fourth question to my list of questions for you. If Trump says if only 200,000 Americans die, keep in mind we've had 3,000 Chinese die. We've had 3,000 Chinese die. We've had, in South Korea, they haven't even had 300 people die. And they got their first case the same day we got our first case. But they started massive testing while Donald Trump started massive denying. He started lying to us. He didn't tell us about the briefings he was getting back in December and January from the spy agencies. He didn't tell us about his Health and Human Services Secretary warning him in January and then again in early February that we needed millions of pieces of personal protective equipment, that this was coming. He didn't tell us. He not only didn't tell us, he lied to us about all those things. And as did virtually all the hosts, or at least all the opinion hosts, on Fox so-called news, as did pretty much the entire right-wing hate media panoply, or whatever you call it, pantheon. They all lied to us. And many of them knew that they were lying. And now, we have this consequence. Now, in the blue states, where the governors were actually listening to the scientists instead of listening to that fool in the White House, they actually started doing something, and they started doing something fairly quickly. But in the red states, they've been doing nothing, and it's going to get really, really bad in the red states. Mark my words, as a consequence of this. And that's going to take Trump down, and I think it's going to take a lot of Republicans down. There's going to be a reckoning in the fall. But to my fourth question, If Trump says that he's done a great job if only 200,000 Americans die, I need to take the word only out of there. If Trump says he's done a great job if 200,000 Americans die, it raises a question in my mind: what does he think his job is? Seriously, what does this guy think his job is? If he's done a great job and 200,000 Americans are dead, more than died in Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined, a third of what we lost in the Civil War, 4 times what we lost in the Vietnam War. I can't do the math on 3,000 to 200,000, but it's like, what is that? Almost 100 times, maybe 70 times more than died on 9/11. If he thinks that's a good job, what does he think his job is? Does he think his job is to kill Americans? Does he think his job is to clean out the blue states? Because so far it's been hitting blue states, right? It's been hitting big cities. It hit Seattle, blue state, Washington. Jay Inslee, he's a snake. It's now hitting Louisiana. Oh, John Bel Edwards, he's a Democrat. We're not going to send him what he wants. It hit New York. Andrew Cuomo, a blue state, Democratic governor. You know what they're doing? They're taking the masks and respirators that we send them, and they're selling them out the back door of the hospitals. Honest to God, Donald Trump has said that 2 days in a row on television. This mealy-mouthed con man in the White House is blaming healthcare workers and hospitals for his own incompetence that is causing them to be on the front lines of a massive pandemic and perhaps even facing their own deaths as a result of his incompetence. I mean, consider that for a moment. So what does he think his job is? Does he think, I have an opinion about that. I have a theory. I think Donald Trump, and I've said this before, I've been saying this for months now, maybe even years. It's hard to remember that we're 3 friggin' years into this presidency. I think Donald Trump thinks that his job is to be game show host in chief, reality show host in chief. I think he thinks that Celebrity Apprentice moved from NBC to the White House, and that every day he has to stage a production. He used to stage his production in front of audiences of thousands of adoring fans. Now he's staging his production in front of tens of millions of Americans who are watching with slack-jawed amazement and horror. We're watching this reality show, the Trump reality show, every day on TV. Actually, I've stopped watching it. I just can't. I'm sickened by it. But people are watching this going, really? He said that? I mean, again, yesterday he was blaming nurses and doctors and paramedics and EMTs and janitors and orderlies, saying that they're stealing. They're stealing these products and selling them out the back doors of hospitals. There's no evidence that that is going on.